Welcome back. The purpose of this video is to assist you in your preparation of your second model building project, problem P10, or financial statements. I would encourage you to read through the model building hints located in the Canvas module or consider rewatching the short model building video which outlines these important concepts. Just as a reminder, you will be earning points for planning, documentation, completeness, accuracy, appearance, and flexibility. So let's get started. This problem will give you practice with creating a financial statement template from scratch. As the slide indicates, don't forget that the bottom line of the income statement, there are two results possible. One is a net income or profit, and the other one is a net loss. I want you to keep that in mind as we work throughout this template. As always, you should have previewed the Canvas module. You should have printed out or at least read the directions. And there is no Excel file to download now. You'll be creating that from scratch. And as always, review your work and don't forget to submit only one file per problem. As always, seek out help if you need it. So the objectives of this problem are to use proper model building techniques to create a set of financial statements. I will be specifically looking at flexibility, so we're going to strive to create a template that's flexible enough to be used on a repetitive basis, either month to month or year to year, depending on a company's needs. We'll introduce you to the Concatenate function, which allows us to combine words and numbers or text. We'll review the equals if statement that we learned way back on the payroll problem, and as always, we'll create a chart. So again, points will be awarded from 0 up as opposed from 20 down in the pre-programs portion of the class. Now you start at 0 and you earn your points based on the planning, documentation, completeness, accuracy, appearance, and in this problem, flexibility will be key. So to start us off, let's just review the basics of financial statements. I will go through these slides rather rapidly because you've seen them before in another problem. So I've reinstated them into this demonstration just in case you're a little rusty. So, of course, you know by now that the three basic financial statements that we're working on are a multi-step income statement, a statement of owner's equity, and a classified balance sheet. I want to emphasize the word classified. Some of you have been turning in very basic balance sheets, and in Accounting 100, you learned how to do a classified balance sheet, so let's use that. We will not be doing a statement of cash flows, which is also a required financial statement, because typically a class does not learn how to do that until Accounting 102. So that's why that one's not included. And the first big chunk on an income statement is what we call operating revenue, and that's where you'll include your sales less any contra accounts. Two typical contra accounts are sales returns and allowances, as shown here, and also sales discounts are quick or prompt payment discounts offered to customers for payment on time. The next major section is called cost of goods sold, and the cost of goods sold section contains information about the cost of the merchandise that was sold during the period, just as its name implies. An overview of the cost of goods sold would show you three basic elements that are needed. You'll take your beginning inventory, you'll add in the net delivered cost of purchases, and you'll subtract out your ending inventory, and this will give you the cost of goods sold. We'll further break this down so that you can see how to create the net delivered cost of purchases. So the net delivered cost of purchases is computed by starting with your purchases and adding in the freight in or transportation in, and by subtracting out the two contra expense accounts that you learned about, purchase returns and allowances, and purchases discounts. Those 4 items will give you the net delivered cost of purchases. And so once again, here's an overview of cost of goods sold. That'll probably be the most challenging section of your income statement. And so once again, that's why this slide is provided for you to help you in that endeavor. So here's an example of a partial income statement which computes cost of goods sold. And again, as an overview, you start off with your beginning inventory. You compute the net delivered cost of purchases, which is this chunk here. You add the beginning inventory to the net delivered cost of purchases, and that gives you the available for sale. And you subtract out your ending inventory, and that's how we wound up with cost of goods sold. The next chunk on your income statement will be gross profit on sales. And in a nutshell, gross profit is net sales less the cost of goods sold. So again, this slide is intended to just refresh your memory on how to compute cost of goods sold. And here is a partial income statement for, again, a company that's used in your Accounting 100. First, you see the net sales computation. Next, in this place, you see cost of goods sold. Remember, there was a big supporting calculation to get to that number. Next, gross profit is calculated. Then the operating expenses are subtracted out to wind up with net income. Whoops. And once you have your net income, that will flow to the statement of owner's equity, as you see here. Now remember, on this problem, there's 2 results. You need to address both of them. You can either have a net income or a net loss. Your template should accommodate both of them. And finally, you'll be preparing a balance sheet. We want to make sure you do a classified balance sheet, which means that assets are split between current assets and plant or property, plant, and equipment. Remember that current assets are assets that are realized within 1 year, and the assets are listed in order of liquidity. Also, don't forget that if accounts receivable has an allowance, you need to show 3 things: the amount in accounts receivable, the allowance, and the net realizable value. Plant and equipment assets are non-current assets, and when those exist, you need to show 3 things. You need to show the store equipment, less the depreciation, gives you what's called the net book value for that asset. Make sure you do that for each one. The concatenate function is a function which allows you to combine cells in Excel. I'll be introducing it to you in the demonstration. So just a slide to summarize how it works. You can use it to combine cells. You can use it to combine text and numbers. We're going to use it for the 3rd line of our heading. So for example, in the 3rd line of our heading, we're going to use a concatenate function which combines the words "for the year ended" and then makes a reference to a cell to complete the date part. That way, when a user changes the date in the data section, the financial statement headings will automatically update by themselves. And then also in this problem, we'll be refreshing our memory on how an equals if statement is used. We first learned it back in the payroll function. And an if statement is set up to test a condition, and if the condition is true, it will perform the first result. And if it's false, it'll perform the second result. So this will come into play because on the income statement, the 2 possibilities are there'll either be a net income or a net loss. So keep that in mind. So let's get started with the Excel. I've input several things in the interest of time. The first thing you'll notice is that I have properly documented my work, which means I have my name, the file name, and a brief description of what the template's doing. In addition to that, I've set up my data section and my answer section down below. My answer section remains blank because I'm going to refresh your memory on how to create that. So let's get started creating our income statement. First thing I'm going to do is cell reference my heading. So one thing you might consider doing is splitting your worksheet so that you can move independently up and down. So I'm going to go right in the middle of my screen. I'm going to go up here to the Split tab, which is under the View. I'm going to split the screen so that the top half of my template can move independently of the lower half. So in my answer section, the first thing I want to use is a 3-part heading. Since I have part of that in my data section, I'm going to cell reference. So I'm going to press the equals button and go up, hit the equals button. Now that I've split my screen, I can go up to the top half and go grab the name of the company here in A11 and press enter. And then I'm going to go grab, actually I'm going to type this one in. This is an income statement. There's nothing to grab up above. And here's where the concatenate's going to come in, so I want you to pay particular attention to it. I'm going to press equals concatenate, and then I'm going to put what I want to combine in quotes for the year ended. And then I want to go grab the date, and the date's up in my data section. So let me go grab that right now. Here it is in cell A13. I'm going to press enter. And you'll notice that I get an answer that says for the year ended, and then right now it looks kind of funny. So I'm going to format this as a date. So back to my home page, my home tab, I'm going to format this cell as a date. This again equals concatenate in quotes for the year ended. I'm going to leave a space because I want there to be a space between the date and then the cell reference that I'm going to go grab. I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to go grab that date that we entered, and you can see that it properly formatted it. And I would wait to center these items until the very end when you know how wide your template's going to be. But again, in the interest of time, because I want to be able to demonstrate that to you, I would suggest you don't use merge and center. Instead, highlight what it is that you want to center over the area, and then go to the alignment, hit the explode button, and you want to center it across selection. And again, there's lots of different things you can do to add value to your appearance points. So just like I did on the top, I'm going to make this black and make the font inside white. You don't have to do this. I'm just giving you some suggestions for things you can do that add to the appearance. And now we'll begin to create our income statement. Okay, you can either pull the titles from the top or you can type them in. It's up to you. I'm going to start off by putting revenue from sales. You'll notice that I have some smaller column widths here so that I don't have to worry about tabbing over. Instead, I can just, if I want to indent, I'll put the cursor over in the next skinny column. And on this section, this is where you want to do the sales less the sales returns and allowances. And again, you can choose to type them or you can choose to cell reference them. So I'm going to go grab my sales from the top because that way when the data section changes, the answer section will automatically change. So I'm going to the top. I'm going to go grab my sales. There they are. Press enter. I'm going to take out my sales, returns, and allowances. So once again, the equal sign, I'll go grab that contra account and press enter. And I have my first chunk done, going up to this data section again with a split screen. This company doesn't have sales discounts, so I'm ready to compute my net sales. And of course, that should be a formula that subtracts the returns and allowances from the sales. And you can put the lines in now or later, but don't forget to put total lines where appropriate. So there's my total line. The next section will be probably the most challenging for you. That's why several of the slides addressed it. This would be cost of goods sold. And going back to your slide, we notice that cost of goods sold is beginning inventory. And now I'm going to add in my net delivered cost of purchases, which would be purchases plus my freight in is going to give me my delivered cost of purchases. And from that, I'm going to subtract out those two contra accounts which you learned about, purchase returns and allowances. And purchases discounts. And that will give me my net delivered cost of purchases. So let me go grab these items. I'll start with getting my beginning inventory. So that's going to be at the top here. These look like they're in chart of account order. Now this ending inventory is my ending inventory, so I'm going to scroll down until I see, I believe it's your income summary. This is the beginning inventory, this is the ending inventory. So here's my beginning inventory. It's in the debit to the income summary. I'm going to go grab my purchases. So now in my split screen, I'm going to go find the cost of goods sold accounts by scrolling here. Here we go. Here's purchases. Equals, go grab my freight. I'm ready to add those up. There's lots of ways you can do that. You can use the auto sum, or you can just add them yourself. I'm going to use the auto sum. I need to be one more cell down. I don't like using the auto sum, but some people do, so there we go. Make sure you put total lines where appropriate. I also usually do that at the end, but because I'm trying to demonstrate this to you, I'm trying to put them in as well. Here's my two contras. Here's the returns and allowances. Again, everything is cell referenced. Here's my discounts. So my net delivered cost of purchases is ready to be computed. And I think I'll put this over in the other column just for ease of presentation. That's going to be my net delivered cost, my delivered cost of purchases less those two contra accounts. So again, I'm cell referencing everything. There's my net delivered cost of purchases. My next line item would be merchandise available for sale. Always do a spell check at the end to make sure we don't make any silly spelling mistakes. The merchandise available for sale is the sum of the beginning inventory and the net delivered cost of purchases that we just computed. To finish off my cost of goods sold calculation, I need to take out my ending inventory, which is also going to be an income summary. So I'm going to go scroll up to the top again, go up to where my income summary account is with my split screen, and there it is. So press that, and finally I have the toughest number to get, which is cost of goods sold. And that would be my merchandise available for sale, less my ending inventory. So here's my cost of goods sold, and here's my net sales. So my next line would be gross profit, and that's equal to my net sales, which is up here, less my cost of goods sold. And again, I have some cleanup work to do. I need to go put dollar signs on the first line in each column. I have some work I need to finish up. You're going to be listing your operating expenses here. Don't worry about splitting them out between selling and general. Just make one list of operating expenses, and that would include all the various expenses listed. At the bottom here, I want to talk about it. So in this section, after you list your operating expenses, you're going to have the computer decide whether it's a net income or a net loss. So in the interest of time, I'm going to make up this operating expenses. I'm going to put a total in here. Usually you'll list all your operating expenses here and then have a formula compute them. In the interest of time, I'm going to enter a number for operating expenses so that I can show you how this net income or net loss is going to work. Okay, so have the computer compute the amount, which is what I'm going to do right now. So in this cell, I'm going to have the computer compute the net income or loss, which is the gross profit less the operating expenses that you'll have added up. And here I have a number. What I want the computer to do is either to input the word net income or net loss, depending on the result of that calculation. So I want you to come up with an equals if statement that will put net income in this cell if it's a positive number, or net loss in the cell if it's a negative number. So here we go. If this cell is greater than 0, then if that's the case, what do we have? If that bottom line is greater than 0, then we have a net income. Since that's a word, I need to put it in quotes. There's my true result. Otherwise, the false result will be to put in net loss. So there's my equals if statement. Let's see if it works. I'm going to press enter. And it did give me the correct answer of net income. Again, here's my equals if statement in the formula bar. And to test it to see whether it works, I'm going to enter a large number here. Let me enter 500,000 just to see if it works. And you can see that when the operating expenses were increased, the title appropriately changed to net loss. That's one thing I'll be looking for. Remember, the goal of this is that the only thing that should be changed up here is your data section. And you may want to even put another line in your data section that says period ended and have them put something over here. Either that or this line item can be the one that's changed. But the goal is to have everything in the answer section 100% compute on its own. So I want you to think about the flow of that last line of the income statement. Where does the net income or net loss go to? And the answer is it goes to the statement of owner's equity. So when you're creating the statement of owner's equity, think about the equals if again. What does the computer do if you have a net income on the statement of owner's equity versus what will the computer do if there's a net loss? Build your statements appropriately. A 100% flexible template will not have the user go into the answer section to change anything. So keep that in mind as you're building your template. Okay, the last thing I want to mention to you, in order to make the concatenate function easier to use, in your data section, if you put an apostrophe in front of your date, then you won't have to worry about formatting the cell in a date order. So keep that in mind, and of course, if there's any questions, don't hesitate to ask. So just again, as an overview, this equals if statement starts with the condition to be tested. In our template that we just did, it was to see whether the net income was greater than 0. If it is, we input net income. If it wasn't, then we input net loss. On an A paper, this won't be your only equals if statement. Think about where else on your template an equals if statement would be appropriate. And again, as always, double check your problems before completing them and uploading them. Use the discussion board as appropriate, and after double checking, make sure that you only upload one final Excel file. Hopefully that's enough help. If not, just ask. Don't forget to use that discussion board. Don't forget we have staffed accounting labs. We also have one-on-one tutoring, free tutoring available in the library. I look forward to seeing your uploads. Have a good day.